thanks for clicking on this next question, which is how can I reduce some of my risks? Well, especially when it comes to owning commercial properties, there are risks that come along with that. In triple net leased investments, part of the risk is transferred to the tenants, and that's one of the other benefits that you don't always see on the surface. The lease itself allows the tenant to be able to be in control of paying the property taxes, paying the insurance, and taking care of the maintenance on the property. But what it does for a landlord is alleviate some of the risks of the creeping expense that you get over time of the cost of living for these things. And it passes that expense directly on to the tenants. So you don't start out with a fixed rent that is a gross rent that the tenant only pays one set fee, and then the landlord has to continue to pay those escalating costs. So again, one of the things from the very beginning is buying a triple net leased investment will eliminate some of those risks. Then the other kind of risk that we talk about again is the event you've got a default on a mortgage and you potentially lose your property. That risk is very prevalent, and we've seen the market cycles that have gone through the Silicon Valley area, especially over the last 10, 12, 15 years, and watched as people lost their properties, especially commercial properties, because the loan to value on the property was higher than the actual value as the property values came down. That loan amount was too much of a burden, and properties had to be bailed out in the commercial world just like in the residential world. So the risk is when you have a loan to value that's too high on your property, the chance that you could be upside down on your mortgage. In commercial lending, what's changed in the last several years because of what happened in 2008, 2009, lenders now only loan at typically 60 to 65% loan to value on a property. And you have to have enough income from the property cash flowing to have something left over after you pay the mortgage. So that's another way risk gets mitigated, simply by the banks not allowing to loan too much money on a property. Another risk that you can have, that you can overcome, is in the event of a bankruptcy, like a tenant, let's say for example when Round Table Pizza filed Chapter 13. That bankruptcy could have cost a property that I manage. The owner would have lost an income on that as the tenant left and was vacant for several months. If that was the case, he would have lost that cash flow. We were able to negotiate with the tenant and mitigate that risk and keep that tenant on board even though we lost rents. And so there's creative things you can do in negotiations to help mitigate risk. But more importantly, if a property goes vacant, if you can set funds aside in a sinking fund and have a few months of income, even maybe a year's worth of income, set aside in the event of a vacancy that you could continue to pay the mortgage regardless of whether you have a tenant or not. That's one of the simplest things that you can do. If you spend every penny that you earn on a property and have to live off of every penny, then you're putting yourself in jeopardy and increasing your level of risk. So these are just a few of the things we can cover when we meet face to face and talk about the risks of owning property, but more importantly, I love to talk about the benefits of owning. So thanks for the question.